Minimum Safe Manning, Chapter 18. Good day, everyone. I'm Jason Dave Kumaklang. We will discuss about Chapter 18, the Minimum Safe Manning, together with my fellow students from BSMT 3AC, Midshipman Manaog, Midshipman Rangaya, and also Midshipman Mariano. First things first, here are our talking points. So first is introduction, next is the regulation 1, which is the definition. Next is the regulation 2, general provisions. Next is the regulation 3, the minimum safe manning. Next is the regulation 4, tables of minimum safe manning. Next is the regulation 5, special manning. Next is the regulation 6, additional manning. Next is the regulation 7, reduction of manning. Next is the regulation 8, suspension of operating officer. Next is the regulation 9, watchkeeping. Next is the regulation 10, certificate in training. Next is the regulation 11, apprentice of training. Next is the regulation 12, duties of marine officers. Next is the summarization. And lastly, the part 2, the assessment. So let's go with the introduction. So when we say safe manning, it is a function of the number of qualified and experienced seafarers necessary for the safety and security of the ship, crew, passengers, cargo, and property, and for the protection of the marine environment. So let's move on to the regulation 1, which is the definition. So I knew that we are already familiar with the ship organization since it's already tackled in Seamanship 1. Maybe to some of the students here. So I'll give some information about ship organization. Ship organization is similar to the government structure we have in our country. Vessels have a world of their own. They are like mini kingdoms having very small population with each person holding specific duties. The duties vary depending on the crew rank. We have three common departments such as deck department, engine department, and the galley department. So first, ship officers and ratings, deck, engine, and galley. So who are they? They are authorized to serve in a position authority on a vessel play. Next is the medical practitioner is a registered doctor of medicine in charge of medical department of the ship. Function means a group of tasks, duties, and responsibilities specified in the STCW code necessary for ship operation, safety of the life at sea, or protection of the environment. Next is the radio officer. It is a person holding on appropriate certificate issued and recognized by the administration under the provision of radio regulation. So I believe that we already knew of the duties and responsibilities of the officers and on board. For example, the captain as the command vessel of the overall command of the ship. So next is let's talk about management, operational, and support level on board. So when we say management level, associated with the level of responsibility on board, such as the master, the chief engineer, or the second engineer on board to ensure that all functions within the designated area of responsibility are properly performed. So next is the operational level. Applies to junior officers for maintaining direct control over the performance of all function within the designated area, responsibility in accordance with the proper procedures and under the direction of individuals serving in the management level for the area of responsibility. So next is the support level applies to ratings forming part of the navigational or engine watch. Means the level of responsibility associated with performing assigned tasks, duties, and responsibilities on board a seagoing ship under the direction of individuals serving in the operational or management level. So that's all for Regulation 1. Let's move on to Regulation 2, General Provision. So Regulation 2, this part are the instructions pertaining to general provisions of Chapter 18. Masters, officers, and ratings on board seagoing ship shall be duly qualified, competent, certificated, and medically fit in accordance with the existing regulations on the issuance of certificates and endorsement for seafarers. So, seagoing ships or yung Philippine registered ships dapat merong approved minimum safe manning certificate indicating the minimum of officers and crew and their correspondence license and qualification. And ito pa yung ship engaged in international trade naman na kayang magkarga ng 1,000 passengers are required to have on board one medical practitioner and one registered nurse, while those carrying less than 1,000 should have one medical practitioner based on this regulation suggests. So next is the ship engaged in the domestic trade naman shall have onboard medical personnel in relation to the number of passengers and duration of voyage like we are seeing in this slide. Such as medical practitioner named as the ship health officer shall be responsible for ensuring at all times necessary of the ship hygiene and cleanliness. Masters and first officers in the internal voyage category 1 must be holder of radio General Operations Certificate or GOC. So next is the steward department. Kailangan ay adequate staff para kaya nilang mag-provide ng mga pagkain at iba pang services. This chapter, kailangan lahat ay dokumentado even the galley department. For example na lang, ito yung messman. Kailangan mag-comply ng basic training tsaka dapat holder siya ng valid ID identification and record book or yung SIRB. So now we'll proceed to the regulation 3, the minimum safe manning. So for the purpose of this chapter, unless expressly provide otherwise, the minimum safe manning of ship for which this chapter applies takes heed of the following. We have here the length of the nature of voyage, the construction and technicality of the equipment, consideration of the number, the size, radio, and health personnel, regulation, and others. In adopting the table of minimum safe manning herein prescribed, the administration took cognizable of the principles of safe manning tulad ng sinabi ko kanina. Lahat ng crew ay dapat qualified, competent, certificated, and medical fit. At idagdag natin ay yung paano yung mga experience na to. And so next is the which can provide the capability. So let's focus on the slide. Dapat can maintain a safe navigational and engineering watch for surveillance for the ship. Next ay yung kakayanan na mag-operate ng mga watertight doors. May alam sa lahat ng life-saving appliances on board. Tsaka itong kaya mag-operate at kaya mag-maintain ng mga propulsion at auxiliary machines para kahit may masamang panahon ay kumpiyansa tayo na yung barko natin ay titirik. So next, the size of the crew. The size of the crew sufficient in terms of officers, ratings with appropriate skills and experience to ensure a degree of safety. Next is the regulation 4, which is the table of minimum safe manning. These tables of manning, safe manning, are generally manning subject to the provision of regulation 2, 6, and 7 that will be discussed later on. So, minimum safe manning is assessed on a case-to-case basis upon request of the company and subject to the approval of the administration. So, for this section, I will discuss one class only on category because I think it will cost a lot of time. So, for passenger ship, cargo, and tankers, in deck department and engine department requires number of crews depend to its ship tonnage and power. So, for example, class A for passenger ship, the deck department. So, below 500 gross tonnage, it must have one master, one first officer, one second officer, two deck watchkeeper, two deck rating. They must have necessary license or qualification to get into the ship. For instance, the master, he must have a chief mate license. First officer, he must have a second mate rank to qualify. The 500 to 999 gross tonnage. The ship must have one master, one first officer, one second first officer, two deck rating, watchkeeper, two deck rate, and two deck rating. I mean, for the ship tonnage, the captain necessarily have one master mariner or either a licensed senior deck officer on a ship of 300 gross registered tonnage and over, with an additional 12-month sea practice of a senior deck officer on a commercial seagoing vessels of 300 gross registered tonnage and above in international shipping. So next is the 1000 and over. It requires one master, one of first officer, second officer, third officer, one boatswain, and three deck watchkeeper and three deck rating. So let's move on in the engine department, which is the power. So for under 1,500 kilowatts or under 2,000 horsepower, vertically unmanned engine room must have one chief engineer, at least a licensed second engineer, one assistant engineer, at least licensed a third engineer, one second assistant engineer, at least a licensed fourth engineer, and two engine watchkeeper. For vertically unmanned under 1,000 kilowatts, this regulation requires one first officer each rank, including ratings, except for watchkeeper that needs two of them and have at least a license or qualification below their current rank. So next is the for over 1 kilowatts and under 3 kilowatts, 3,000 kilowatts or over 200 horsepower for manned and unmanned passenger ship must have one chief engineer, first engineer, second engineer, and electrician. Similar to the qualification, they must have license or they already attained to those certain ranks to be qualified becoming crew on the ship. And then the electrician needs to be a master electrician. So this kind of ship having this kind of power must be also consist of two engine watchkeeper and two engine rating. So for now, we just cited one class per selected category, which is the category 1, ship engaged in international voyage. However, I knew that we are eager to learn and we want knowledge keep flowing towards our brain. Yeah, we just suggest also if possible to continue reading this part under chapter 18 regulation 4. Thank you. Next reporter.
Special manning. For this section, special manning concerns about a ship may be allowed to reduce or add its manning complement, subject to the approval of the administrator. For example, in case of emergency, tulad ng sinasabi ito sa slide, na kapag may aksidente on board at di na kayang i-exercise pa yung task niya. Okay, what this section suggests. For what Regulation 5 concerns, special manning can be applied if there are crews that face tragic incident on board and cannot perform its duty. The ship can call for replacement and recruit qualified crew to be substitute to the deficiency of number of crew on board by the approval of administration. Pero next part pa mangyayari yung special manning kung saan magaganap yung replacement. For example, sa case ng engine department, it must have one qualified marine engineer officer na ipapalit. And then there is also limitation. It suggests that no special manning shall be allowed for more than 30 days reckoned from the day that the ship sailed with the officer and rating. Less than that is required by this regulation, except in these cases to be determined by the administration. Kapag may kulang na isa sa isang officer or rating during the voyage while at sea, for instance, from the immediate port of origin to the next port of destination, resulting from unforeseen exceptional circumstances, such as illness or injury, is permitted until the voyage is completed, provided that the master is satisfied that the ship safe navigation and operation will be maintained despite the shortage. Such a situation must be immediately reported to the administration. Regulation 6. Additional manning. For what I understand in this regulation, additional manning sometimes or in special event occur on the ship that adding an additional crew on board is necessary, to which the addition crew is adequate or needed to perform the specific task on board the vessel that's suitable to his or her knowledge and skills. Let's say, for example, the ship has a faulty electrical wiring that affecting not only the electrical device essential in navigation, but also the bulb and lights for every corner of the ship. So the marine engineer has the duty and responsibility to maintain and fix the main generator, emergency generator, and power supply. But in electronic device on board the ship is not on the engineer's study field and skills. Also the pairs of lights and wiring of the ship. That field is covered by the electrician. He has the knowledge and skills adequate to that special task. According to the Marine Insight website that I read, some shipping companies do not carry electrical officers on their ship to cut down the manning cost, and the electrical duties are carried by someone from the engineer's side. Normally, the third engineer, but not all the time the engineer is suitable or has the knowledge on every aspect on this field, though the additional manning is approved when the management or the company has issued new manning certificate, and special attention shall be given to the extent to which the crew is intended for the task specific for him. Regulation 7, reduction of manning. A ship is allowed to reduce its manning complement in accordance to principle of safe manning kung saan guys, sinasabi na yung lang capable na may enough na knowledge and skills to operate yung machinery on board and maintain it. The company has the power to reduce its manning maintenance on board. Ang natatandaan ko na may napanood ako na clip sa TikTok na pinauwi yung electrician kasi di naman daw magaling. Sabi nung mataas na opisyal sa kanya, halos 2 to 3 months lang siya doon. The purpose, I think, was to eradicate the risk of accident on board because the main priority is our safety. Regulation 8, dispensation or upgrading of officer. Dispensation, so what it is? According to Google, dispensation refers to a document issued in a favor of a seafarer in case of exceptional necessity as defined hereunder who does not hold the appropriate certificate required by the convention, permitting a seafarer to serve a specified task for a specified period. This kind of measure still need condition provided that number 1, the said seafarer is adequately qualified to fill the vacant post in safe manner. Number 2, the seafarer holds a certificate which qualifies him or her to hold the position immediately. Number 3, the ship for which dispensation permit is being granted shall be specifically identified or named. However, dispensation or upgrading shall not be granted to a master or chief engineer, except in circumstances of force majeure, shall be valid until the next fort. Force majeure refers to a clause that is included in contracts to remove liability for natural and unavoided catastrophes that interrupts the expected course of events and prevents participant from fulfilling the obligations. Means what? For example, namatay si Duterte dahil lumagsak yung eroplano. So ano yung sinasaad sa Constitution? Sinasabi na ang Vice President ay agad-agad magiging o pamalit na presidente. Nakukuha niyo yung point? Inside the vessel, what possible instances? For For example, the death of a master or chief engineer. Ano pa? Physical incapacity of a master or chief engineer to perform his task. Inulit ko po. When the position below, the vacant post to be filled does not require any certificate under the Regulation 8 of the Pmmrr. A dispensation or upgrading ay maibibigay lang sa specified seafarer whose qualification and experience ay kung saan sa tingin ng administrator ay kayang-kaya niya.
Gina.
Kaya, Regulation 9. Yung watchkeeping, sila yung nag-navigate ng ship safely during their periods of work. And they will be particularly concerned with avoiding collision and sanding. However, this regulation tackled about health and watchkeeping arrangement na kabarang natin. Unang concern, fitness or duty. What the administration requires for preventing the fatigue on board ship. This regulation stated that, number 1, establish and enforce rest periods for watchkeepers. The STCW code has been amended regarding hours of rest, so it is now in line with the International Labour Organization, or ILO. Hours of rest may be summarized as a minimum of 10 hours rest is required to be provided in any 24-hour period. The period of rest may be divided into no more than 2 periods, one of which shall be at least 6 hours in length, and lastly, intervals between consecutive periods of rest shall not exceed 14 hours. A minimum of 7 to 7 hours rest is required in any 7-day period. But still, this arrangement hindi siya ina-apply in case of emergency or in other overriding operational conditions. Masters in there shall be conducted in a manner that causes minimum disruption to rest periods and does not induce fatigue. Kapag ang watchkeeper ay naka-duty, for example, an engineer officer, an EMS, or unattended machinery spaces duty, they must give him an adequate and compensating if the normal period of rest is disturbed by call-outs or number 2, require watch system to be implemented at all times. That all watchkeeping is efficient personnel is not hampered by fatigue and that responsibilities are so well organized that the lockout of the journey and subsequent relieving watches are adequately tested and otherwise fit for duty. Pero reality check muna tayo. Having poor sleeping conditions will always be part of sailor's life. Nandiyan yung weather natin sa dagat, mga movements sa schedule, yung trabaho natin kahit tutulog, iniisip pa rin natin. Nandiyan yung stress at kakulangan sa exercise. Pero yung iba, ewan ba kung ba't tumataba pa rin kahit heavy loaded sa trabaho. Kung mapapansin natin, it all combines to poor sleep quality and less fatigue. We have to risk ay nangyayon. Kaya with proper care and attention, seafarers can enjoy a safe and rewarding working environment, which means accidents are avoided. Crew remain healthy at yung mga seaman talaga ay bumabalik sa industry. Kasi that was the ultimate benefit that this industry wants at the first place, dapat safe ka. Next, watchkeeping arrangements and principles to be observed. Number 1, officer in charge of the navigational watch are responsible for navigating the ship safely during their periods of duty, when they shall be physically present in the navigational bridge or indirectly associated with locations such as the chat room or bridge control room at all times. The officer in charge of the navigational watch shall keep a watch on the bridge, continue to responsible for the safe navigation of the ship. Despite the presence of the watchers on the bridge, until informed specifically that the master has assumed that responsibility this is mutually understood. Number two, radio operators are responsible for maintaining a continuous radio account appropriate frequency during their periods of duty. Number three, officers in charge of an engineering watch is defined in STCW code and under the direction of the chief engineer shall be immediately available and on call to attend machinery spaces and when required shall be physically present in the machinery spaces during their periods of responsibility. And particular guidance may be necessary for special types of ships, lalo na yung kakarga ng hazardous, dangerous, toxic, or highly flammable cargoes. Kaya the captain or the master must provide operational guidance. Essential din sa mga officer in charge ng bridge team na dapat nilang matinding isipin na kung ano ba talaga yung trabaho nila or function nila to that particular operation. Kasi at the same time, binabantayan din nila yung kasama nila. Stated to this section, the interest of the safety of life, security, and marine environment. And a lot more concerning situations which might affect the security of the ship. We will now proceed to Regulation 10, which is the certificate and training. As such, seafarers need to hold the following certificates to verify that all requirements of the convention are met, like the Certificate of Competence. So, ano nga ba yung Certificate of Competence? Sinasabi natin. Ito yung document na binibigyan ng kapitan, officers, stage operators, and mga ratings on what who met the requirements of competence applicable to their specific responsibilities and degrees of responsibility involved. Endorsement. Next is the endorsement na sinasabi. A document issued to the masters and officers which endorses that national certificate has been issued in accordance with all STCW requirements, requiring that all endorsements are only issued by the administration on the condition that, una, full verification of the authenticity of any certificates and documentary evidence. Ito pa, that the candidate has fulfilled all requirements and thus the standard of competence for the capacity in the endorsement. Thirdly, proper approval of the equivalent seagoing service and training is ensured. And lastly, a database of certification registration with a controlled electronic access is maintained. Number 3, certificate of proficiency. How about naman the certificate of proficiency? This certificate attests to a seafarer's ability to perform certain responsibilities related to safety, person care, or cargo in accordance with STCW criteria. Namely, they include certificates for personnel serving on certain types of ship, and for those assigned with safety, security, and pollution prevention duties. And lastly, and other documentary evidence. Documentary evidence naman ay not necessarily issued or recognized by the administration. This is why it is not called certificate. Important to keep these documents since they are one of the accepted ways of demonstrating that seafarers have achieved proficiency in a given task like basic safety training, for example. For such evidence is not available on board training and experience, they will be required to undergo a 5-failure refresher course in personal survival and fire prevention and firefighting. And next regulation 11, which is the apprentice training. Ito naman ay malaga din natin malaman kasi we're already graduating kaya dapat alam din natin yung mga rights natin kahit nagsisimula pa lang. Unahin natin yung responsibilities. The mariner shall be responsible for the effective and efficient implementation of apprenticeship training. So, huwag tayo mag-relax, hindi naman tayo pababayaan ng administration. Next. The nautical and marine engineering school shall be responsible for the efficient monitoring of this training program. Kaya ano nga ba talaga yung talagahan na nitong apprentice training? Apprentice. Ano nga ba talaga yung kalagahan ng apprentice training? Apprentices or mga kadete get an opportunity of undergoing on-the-job training and that are exposed to real working conditions. They are given the opportunity to work on advanced projects, machines, and equipments, industry-specific best practices, and gaining better understanding of their profession. Ang inobligahin lahat ng mga cadets natin na magkaroon ng seafarers training record kasi evidence at requirements to provide true documentation of practical training and experience. The training record must be formatted in such a way that it has the ability to offer specific information on the tasks and responsibilities that must be completed. Kasi it is the process of determining competence for the process of issuing certificate for cadets natin. And the last regulation 12, we have duties of marine officers. The duties of marine officers in management international levels pursuant to the STC level code and responsibility to be defined under the International Safety Management Code are deemed duties of marine officers. Recognizing the need of appropriate organization of management to enable to correspond to the need of those for ships that should maintain high standards and safety environments. Protection. So ano ba talaga yung gusto ng idin dito? Safety management objectives of the company should first provide for safe practices in the ship operation and safe working environment. Second, establish safeguards against all identified risks. And lastly, continuously improve safety management skills of personnel assurance aboard ships, including preparing for emergencies related both to safety and environment protection. The management system of marine officers should ensure compliance with mandatory rules and regulations, and that applicable codes, guidelines, and standards recommended by the organization, administration, classification societies, and maritime industry organization are taken into account. Ito ay galing sa International Safety Management or ISM Code. Sa mga nakalimutan na, it means International Management Code for the safety operation of ships and for pollution prevention as adopted by the Assembly, as amended by the organization. The company and those in management level on board should ensure that the policy is implemented and maintained at all levels of the organization, both ship-based and as well as shore-based. Thank you. Wrap up will be followed.
So, thank you, mates, for elaborating this chapter, which is known as minimum safe manning. To make this chapter short, for you to understand better, I will wrap up all the ideas that possibly confused others. When we say minimum safe manning, first thing first na inaalala is yung manning or yung mga tao at safety, no? From the beginning of the report, our reporters mentioned that it is the function, means a group of tasks, duties, and responsibilities for the number of qualified seafarers. That's why, in order to complement this chapter, gumawa sila ng mga guidelines na dapat tandaan. As a general rule, the number of crew required would depend upon, for example, yung laki at uri ng barko. Pansinin natin yung table of safety manning under Regulation 4. Depends on the tonnage and power. Nire-require lang na ilan na mga crew, diba? Maraming rason kung bakit some of these ay yung kaya mag-maintain ng safe navigation. Kaya yung kaya mag-moor tsaka mag-unmoor ng barko. Kaya nag-provide sila ng medical care at iba pa. What else? Trade of the vessel or trade areas depends on a flag state and if the engine room is manned or unmanned. And this chapter also mentioned about special manning, which is kapag may aksidente, the ship can call for replacement and recruit qualified crew. And of course, need pa din ng approval ng administration tulad ng marina dito sa atin. Ano pa? Yung tinatawag nating additional, reduction, tsaka dispensation manning. For example, sa electrical wiring, no, the ship walang electrician and marine engineers. Andun, and di naman sakop ng skills and expertise niya. So, yung ship, mag-a-appeal na they need electrician. So, papasok na yung additional manning. Including in the minimum safe manning is the consideration of rest hours of the crew in order to avoid fatigue para maiwasan natin yung sinasabi nila a while ago. This regulation requires a minimum of 10 hours rest in any 24-hour period. Just ensure all aspects of their health, especially their physical and mental health, to avoid fatigue. These requirements does not apply in the case of emergency or in other overriding operational condition. You must remember that. Let's go to the certificate and training, which is we must also consider in order to practice safety manning. So, let's go to the certificate and training. Before any seafarer joins a ship, he or she needs to make sure that all valid certificates are in place as such to obtain an STCW certificate. And then the documentary evidence, which attests that the seafarer has participated in a safety drill or has completed some of the training just to ensure that the crew are trained to the minimum standard within the amended convention and have the appropriate documentary evidence. You must remember this chapter provides information on the minimum safe manning requirements for the Isle of Man Philippine registered vessels and the procedures for applying for a minimum safe manning document. And thank you all for being here today watching this report and taking the time to patiently to what we had to say. And we wish you all a blessed day. Thank you.